Welcome to the Red Barrels podcast. It's episode 34. We did it, everyone. We got past the 33 barrier, and now we're in the sunlit uplands of the 34s and ups. We did it. Everyone knows that's the threshold, and we've done it. We barely even have to try anymore. Everything's easy. The world's going great. Everything's on the upswing. Games are going
Thoroughly
great.
a millennial.
Our lives are going great. Well, I say our lives. I just before we recorded, I had a harrowing moment when I saw a tweet that had, if the characters on The Sopranos, if they made the pilot episode of The Sopranos today, what year all the actors would have been born in?
Yeah.
And Tony Soprano would have been born in 1990. And I died, dear listener. Quite a large part of me died inside.
I would have been older than me.
Not me. I'm Alex. You know that. You're listening to me right now. Who else is with me?
Sofie! That's me. Who else is with me?
Ed, that's me. I'm the youngest of the group.
Well
You
done,
are.
well done. I think
The baby.
I think he might be Meadow. I think he might be Meadow. Would you be Meadow, Ed? Would you be Meadow?
I didn't look up the ages, but
Maybe Meadow.
Who
Maybe
would I
Meadow.
be?
Well, Meadow's in university at the end, so maybe not.
yeah,
But
probably not.
probably, I'd say you're, worst case scenario, you could be, the wife? You could be her.
Come at her.
She's like 92.
What's it? Put some
She's born in
respect on her name.
1992, apparently.
The wife? Who am I?
Jesus.
I don't know. I'm going by age. I just don't remember her
Who
name.
am I? I've never seen
Sophie.
The
You said
Sopranos
that at the
anyway.
start of the
so
episode.
Yeah. Oh! He freaking forgot.
Yeah,
I've never
we
seen
did
The
it.
Sopranos. I've been told I should watch it.
You should.
Have you ever watched like television before, Sophie? Seems like there are quite a few things you haven't seen.
Well, boy, am I going to tell you about something later in this episode.
Oh wow, we'll look forward to
I
that.
actually watched quite a bit.
What a tease. What an advert for what's to come.
What a tease.
What a
Teaser
tease.
trailer.
I think Sophie
By
might
later in this
actually be
episode, I
referring
mean the next episode.
the next episode, yeah.
Oh.
Yes.
Because of course this is the news episode. We're doing news. That's what we're doing in this episode.
We
No,
need
you have
like
to
a
wait.
BBC.
Beep, yeah.
Boop.
And not a sound bed. I'm not doing it. That's work. I'm not doing that. I'm not doing a sound bed. They may do sound
I'll
beds
make
like
one.
Sophie
on
should
other
provide it.
podcasts
I'll
that are
make
better
it.
than ours. Maybe I will. One day I'll surprise you with a sound bed, but not today. And I'm not stealing the BBC's.
I'll make a news jingle for the news episodes.
I genuinely that you've said that on the podcast, and I'll have to edit it out if you renege.
It's gonna be bad.
So yeah, it has to happen now. But this is a news episode. We've got news items. Games next week, but news this week. And first up, it will be Ed and his news.
The news is Ubisoft are being sued by a leading consumer association backed by the Stop Killing Games campaign.
Wow.
Dun, dun,
Wow.
dun, dun.
Gasp.
In December, the year of our Lord 2023,
Wow.
having recently released a new game in the series, Ubisoft announced that the first The Crew game was being shut down. The servers switched off, the game removed from sale. This was an open world driving game and it required constant internet access, I think for DRM reasons, even while people were playing the single player mode. So this announcement of the servers being shut off would render the game entirely unplayable.
I think it did have like a lot of like online, like always on online, so like you might see other people driving cars around your world. But
Yeah, I think the main... I haven't played this. I believe that... Now I can't. But I believe the main mode of the game was an online thing, but there was a single-player way of playing the game. So this might not surprise you, but fans of the game were not happy about this development. In fact, they were so not happy that this was the inciting incident that launched the Stop Killing Games campaign that we've talked about a few times on the pod. And they've obviously gone from strength to strength as we've kind of charted, including recently. They even managed to hold a press conference at the EU Parliament building in Brussels, so like on the back of the fact that they've got 1.3 million signatures on their European petition. So this incident has led to this entire campaign blowing up. And actually, an initial success of that campaign was the commitment that they got in late 2024 that an offline mode will be brought into the rest of the games in the Crew series, which is the Crew 2 and the Crew Motorfest, so that there wouldn't be a repeat of this incident. So there's already been some big wins even related to this. And the offline mode update for the Crew 2 came out recently, a few months back in October, I think, although there hasn't actually been one yet for the Crew Motorfest. So that's the Stop Killing Games. That's how it relates to The Crew. But now, 2 years after The Crew was actually taken down, the conflict still continues and it's hotting up as the leading consumer association in France, UFC Choisir, oh no, something like that. It's
I
French.
apologise to our comrades in France.
I'd like to apologise. I'd like to apologise. I have a lot of respect for your fine nation. They are bringing a lawsuit against Ubisoft, who are, of course, a French developer. So I hadn't heard of these guys because I'm English and obviously very ignorant, and I don't know anything about anything that's not in England. So I have to look them up. They were founded in 1951. They have 138,000 members, and their aim is to advocate for and defend consumer rights. In the past, they've had campaigns like demanding the withdrawal of Perrier water bottles because they misleadingly described themselves as natural mineral water. They sued airlines during COVID because they weren't giving the refunds back that they were meant to be giving. They also maintain a crowdsourced list of harmful ingredients that are in cosmetic products, so you can check beforehand to see if there's any harmful ingredients in cosmetic products that you use. They also have done gaming campaigns before. They previously had a campaign around the poor construction of the Joy-Cons in the original Switch, saying that it basically amounted to planned obsolescence. And they also did a campaign around wrongful bans by Activision in Call of Duty games, which obviously deprives people of games they bought, the skins they bought, etc. So it's cool to see an established organization like batting for gamers, I guess, but it's also interesting to see them get directly involved in a games preservation space like this. And of course, Stop Killing Games are backing them up. So they announced this lawsuit on their website on the 31st of March. The post is in French, which tragically I do not speak, despite my GCSE in it. I apologise to my teacher. I was a bad student in French. So I have used Google Translate to translate their statement. They say, at least according to Google Translate, that their goal is to force the courts to answer a key question. Does the purchase of a game allow players the right to use it, totally independent of the will of the publishers? They are, of course, arguing that buying a game ought to give you that right. And so they are demanding the removal of unfair and misleading terms from Ubisoft's contractual conditions, which I think is the stuff basically saying you don't actually own the game. It's like you've got a license to it, which we can rescind, all that stuff. They want to change that stuff. They further say that Ubisoft has denied consumers' rights by making The Crew unplayable after having sold it to people. They say players were misled because the game was never sold as something temporary that would one day be shut down. And through this legal action, they aim to put an end to these practices, remove the conditions that Ubisoft have been using, and to have the harm that's been done to consumers collectively recognised. They describe the current situation as basically a real wild west where companies can basically do what they want and consumers have no recourse, and that's the situation they're trying to end. The hearing on this was expected today, in fact, the day of recording, so there'll probably be an update by the time that you're listening to this. I last checked an hour or two ago and I didn't see any press releases. I haven't heard any information about what's going on there.
I think we all know that they carefully scheduled this hearing specifically to avoid full coverage by us. So, let's consider that's probably what happened.
Those jokers. So, yeah, I'm sure we'll keep an eye on this, but it's interesting to see the Stop Killing Games movement sort of go from strength to strength, get involved with other existing consumer groups, and actually take really concrete actions like this, like a lawsuit, is quite a dramatic thing to happen. And we've talked before, and I'm sure we'll all agree, there's obviously a limit to how much a consumer-based campaign like this, operating within the confines of an existing system that only makes games to make money, which has led to mass layoffs, corners cut with AI, exploitative gambling, etc. There's a limit to how much this can achieve. But with those limitations in mind, I see no reason that we shouldn't be supportive of this campaign and trying to improve the situation for gamers, even if it is in this quite limited way. I want to say, I don't want to linger on this for too long because, as I say, I'm very supportive of this. My only cause for concern, was that they flagged that players were misled because the game was never sold as something that was temporary and something that could be one day shut down. And my concern is it would be quite easy for games to not actually change anything and to just sort of slip that in as a little asterisk in every product that they sell. Yeah. So I think the specifics of it, we'll have to see how that plays out. That could easily be a Google Translate issue, or, in context, that loophole might not work. But that's the only thing that I've had reading that press release where I've gone like, well, that feels like that could be pushed more. I feel like with that specific loophole would be right
It
for the
reminds
picking.
me of when about a lot of games were putting out like questionable footage or screenshots of them in development that were like way in advance of what they could actually do. And people complained about it, and now practically every game has like pre-release footage has like game in development does not reflect final game at the bottom, and like that's all they really chase.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, like with Dark Souls 2, which we discussed last episode, I believe, where people were quite upset that the game looked a lot worse when it came out than it did in
that was a big example of it. Yeah, it had like amazing lighting or something that just got all completely cut in the final
Yes,
game.
the lighting got completely cut and actually did have a bit of an impact on gameplay because there were lots of like dark sections which are now sort of pointless. But anyway, so other than that, this seems like quite exciting. It's interesting to see this kind of campaign engage with like mainstream things, and hopefully some momentum can be built, if not specifically around this exact demand, but around the sort of basically consciousness raising essentially of your like rights as a consumer. I mean, I know that's not exactly the form of consciousness raising we're all about on this podcast, but it is something that could have some limited positive effects that I see no reason why we shouldn't support.
Yeah. I mean, I'm personally would very much like them to succeed. I would say there's actually been another little bit of news about kind of the general topic that came out in the past day or two, which I thought I'd just add myself, which is that a game called Near Reincarnation, which is essentially the third Near game after Near Automata, that's actually a free-to-play mobile game that not many people played because it was a free-to-play mobile game. I certainly wasn't terribly interested in it. But it was directed by Yoko Taro, who's the creative guy behind those games, and it has like story he did and stuff. Like there's a bunch of near stuff in it. But because it's free-to-play mobile game, and I guess it didn't sell very well, they shut it down, and you can't play it now. But a bunch of hobbyists have found a way to hack in and run their own servers, so it is now possible to play that game again. And basically, something that's happened recently on Twitter is that they've started auto-translating all the tweets. So if you go there and look at a foreign language tweet, it's automatically translated for you. But this now means that a lot of Japanese people are like encountering Westerners for the first time, it seems. And like a lot of them have got very upset that Square Enix's copyright has been violated. How dare they violate the sacrosanct nature of corporate ownership, and they've been quite roundly mocked, frankly. But yeah, that just happened in the past day, so it's kind of relevant. So I thought I'd bring it up. But
no, yeah, that is relevant, especially because I mean I didn't mention this, but there has been modding work done on the Crew. I believe it's called. I've just looked it up. It's called the Crew Unlimited. It's a mod pack that basically allows the game to work offline, which again does like if that can be pulled together by an unpaid team, like why couldn't this have been done by Ubisoft? Like, and obviously the fact that they have done it in the next two games in the series, like what's the point of? I mean, it seems confusing to me why they'd have this like lawsuit and stuff. Wouldn't it just be cheaper for them to just release the patch, which someone else has already basically made? Couldn't they like buy this patch from the modders or something? Like I don't know the exact way it would work, but I'm not sure what they have to gain from this. I'm a bit confused by it.
It might be because I think the Crew has a bunch of licensed cars in it, and probably their license only lasts so long, and because they're not making money, they don't want to extend the license. I've noticed, it's under BDS,
you're probably right.
so
That makes sense.
we're not playing it, and I'm not playing it, but the new Forza Horizon, which is in Japan, is coming out soon. There's been some coverage of it. I have seen some of it, and I thought, and I really liked the previous Forza Horizon games, so I'm kind of sad I'm not going to get to play it because it's on BDS. And I kind of thought, well, one day, who knows? One day in the far future, maybe it will be off BDS. Maybe in 10 years' time, this will be
one day Palestine will be free, and then we can all play Forza.
Yeah. The most important issue in the conflict. But the problem is that I think Forza Horizons 1, 2, I think, and 3 have all been taken off because they're full of licensed cars. You can't play them anymore. They've been removed. So literally, there is like a ticking time for I'm hoping that the either Microsoft gets better or Israel and Palestine just sorts itself out before they take Forza Horizon 6 or whatever it is off of the shelves. as I said, the most important part of the entire issue. But yeah, still ridiculous that's possible. Yeah.
Agreed.
But yeah, shall we
Cool.
move on to the next bit of news, which I think will be from Sofie.
Yeah, I guess basically we had a news story a couple of, I don't know, it feels like a month ago, probably, month or so ago, or maybe longer than that, talking about basically itch.io and both itch.io and Steam having problems with payment processing, specifically having to remove certain games because payment processors were basically saying, like, we don't, like Visa, MasterCard, these sorts of organizations were not wanting to be associated with certain types of products that were sold on the Steam or itch.io websites, specifically like sexually explicit products. And then
Sofie, I
itch.io
really hate to
go
do this
ahead.
to you. I really hate to do this to
No,
you.
go ahead.
That episode came out in August.
Oh,
Jesus.
Time, man.
When I say
everything
flies.
comes together with the
Oh my
Sopranos tweet,
God.
man. It's just, it's rough. It's rough.
I'm so old. Sorry.
No, it's okay.
Episode
I
14
I
for the
compress
listeners.
time anyway. I have ADD, so I'm not really. This isn't new for me.
Mhm.
Might be new for you guys, but it's not new for me. I experience
Sorry, go
time
on.
compression on a daily
He's
basis.
a true veteran.
Yeah, my whole life has been time compression. Yeah, basically, itch.io and Steam facing issues with payment processors who were making it kind of unprofitable, essentially, to host some particular games on the website. I believe specifically, like, sexually explicit games was the issue with itch.io and Steam. And the credit card companies, the payment processors just being like, yeah, we're not going to work with you. If you're going to have these games, then we're not going to work with the platform. So the platform's saying, okay, well, then we're just not going to work with the games, right? But basically, in recent news is that the FTC, the American FTC anyway, so I'm not entirely sure, I guess, how that affects international markets. But I mean, the American FTC has basically handed down basically a ruling making these companies, they have to do it. They have to allow people to give these companies money. They have to, I guess they have to make it sort of easier for people to participate in the marketplace. They basically said full participation in commerce and public life necessarily requires that law-abiding individuals can access and freely participate in our financial system, saying that it's kind of anti-American, essentially, to disallow some vendors from selling certain products, especially on like religious or, political grounds, and disallow other vendors from selling particular products. So it seems like, Steam and itch.io kind of have to be made accountable to comply with this particular piece of, I guess I don't really know if it's legislation so much as, like, I don't know what the word here is. Like I said, ruling. That's not really what it is. They kind of just handed down a statement essentially being like, please don't do that. So I don't know. I feel like there's some, pressure to be cooperative, I suppose, with the FTC on this. I do feel like it's probably not going to solve problems because I feel like these payment processing companies, specifically like Visa and MasterCard, are just so powerful that they don't really have to do anything they don't want to. And they are going to take the least litigious route.
Yeah.
So whether that's the, challenging the FTC or if that's challenging gamers, who knows? I don't know which one they would prioritize. But obviously, because we spoke about this in the past, I think specifically with the context of, I guess, horses, maybe, talking about video games being removed. And, for either reasonable or unreasonable reasons, obviously, I think all of us on the podcast agree that there's going to be some content on these platforms, especially, when anyone can basically upload a game. There's going to be some content on these platforms which is like actually illegal and like shouldn't be, or actually exploitative and absolutely shouldn't be a product on there. That being said, there's also going to be content which, like, I myself find distasteful but is maybe not objectively illegal, or might be sort of towing the line between the two, which I absolutely believe does have a right to be on the platform, even if I myself wouldn't spend money on it. Like hentai games being a good example. It's like, I'm not going to spend money on that. But loads of people do, and they have a right to, as long as it's not actually exploitative or illegal or, presenting things that would be illegal if it weren't animated.
Well, the
think we know what I'm talking about there.
The example
So-
you mentioned was horses, which we talked about
Yeah.
on the episode, and
That was just controversial. That was its
basically,
biggest
yeah.
crime.
I mean, you know, there's some edgy stuff in that, but the idea that anything in that game passes any kind of certainly there's nothing illegal in that game.
Yeah.
And I think I don't know if you remember, there were like some pressure groups or something who were specifically pushing for this that were like, I think maybe part of the Christian right,
Yeah.
maybe.
One of them was quite Christian.
Yeah, there was a campaign group called Collective Shout. I've just got back up my notes that I took in advance of that episode. I can't find it exactly in my notes here, but I believe that they sort of came out of they came with things with like an anti-abortion, like Christian right perspective, and like anti-LGBT kind of politics. That was what was bringing them to launch the campaign, which was specifically in relation to a game called No Mercy.
Oh yeah. And I remember that No
and that
Mercy
led to,
game
like,
did sound really
politicians and
terrible,
stuff
but
with
like it's one of those like edge cases that are just like, well, they practically built fuel controversy.
Yeah, and then Collective Shout say that they faced a lot of backlash. Like more than 1 million people signed a petition on change.org criticizing it, and then Collective Shout were like, hold on, we didn't actually ask for all of this to happen. All we asked is that incest and rape games get taken down, and then Steam and itch.io removed all NSFW games. So it was all a bit of a mess, wasn't it? But yeah.
Well, I mean,
and I believe in this case, what's actually happened is they've sent letters. I think that's what the FTC have done. And I'm not sure, but I wonder, does this fit into like the wider like debanking thing that the right sort of bangs on about every now and again? Like that, remember like when Farage was talking about how he was debanked or whatever. So
basically saying it's unacceptable to debank law-abiding citizens due to, quote, political affiliations, religious beliefs, or lawful business activities, was according to Ferguson, who's the head of the FTC, chairman of the FTC.
It's interesting that this is coming out of the Trump administration because, like, I mean, for one thing, they're totally fine with debanking when it's someone like, what's her name? Thingy Albanese. What's her name? Francesca Albanese, who is the UN representative,
special rapporteur
for Palestine or something. I forget exactly her position, but she's like literally she literally cannot have a bank account anywhere effectively in the world, or like incredibly massive restrictions for her doing that because America has just decided that she shouldn't be allowed to. I mean, this is as you said, this is ostensibly just in America, but because of American hegemony, they have huge
it affects
huge power
else,
over the banking systems in the entire world. And who knows?
Yeah.
Kind of looks like American hegemony might be collapsing, so maybe that'll change soon. That'd be nice. But for right now.
Yeah. I feel like we generally just sort of as a populace need to be quite careful of like groups and organizations framing things as protecting vulnerable groups, protecting women, etc., under the guise of just like censorship. You know, I think we just have to be very aware. Like I feel like there's all this stuff happening with the internet and taking like Meta to court and stuff, and it's like, yeah, they have a lot of power. Yeah, they should probably like step in a little bit more in terms of content moderation, but also the moment you sort of go into holding companies like legally liable for things that users post, then you just sort of have websites shutting down the entire thing and just censoring shit like far and widely. And it's like I don't know, it's just another case of I feel like we're going to be seeing more and more of this protect the kids style censorship arguments, very much here in the UK as well with the fucking Online Safety Act, etc., making it impossible to use so many websites, etc., for like very, very legitimate reasons. So yeah, I don't know.
Yeah.
Just I think we should just be aware,
And like Alex is kind of pointing out, that like protect the kids sort of line does run in tension with the freedom, like the unlimited freedom to do anything you want sort of line, both of which are sort of political tools, and protect like as an idea, and freedom as an idea can be constructed in any given moment to be what's most politically expedient for the people at hand. And what we're seeing here is like the sort of effects, the sort of like unintended effects that all of this stuff can have. Like it happens to impact something that we like, and that's why we've brought it up. But like this entire debanking thing is sort of a conversation going on separately, like a sort of above our heads, and it's just popped into our domain, so we've rolled up our sleeves and taken a crack at talking about it. But yeah, very interesting, and something we should all be keeping an eye on.
Yes.
Yes, listener, including you.
Your eyes on this
Especially
all the
you.
time, 100%. That's the way it should be. And we will also keep an eye on it. And if there are further developments, you'll hear about it on here, I'm sure. Unless there are 3 other bigger stories
Unless they censor us.
in that 2-week period, in which case we probably won't mention
Yeah.
it. Sorry.
Yeah, unless they take us down, for reporting on the truth.
Very
So,
likely. Very
yeah.
likely.
Watch out for the arguments, protect the children from the Red Banner podcast. I'm just saying.
Yeah. They took Che Guevara down. They took Salvador Allende down. I think we're the next obvious target.
Definitely. That's the lineage. Che, Allende, us. That's it.
RB.
That's how it goes.
Us
The RB3,
3
they'll call
white
it.
people.
Speaking of white people.
Oh,
Just there
Never
were
a
a lot
good
of white
segue.
people on it. It's indie games. I mean, it's like I said about any element of gaming. And what can I say? There are also a lot of non-white people. That's a kind of a really rubbish segue I just made. We're going to talk about my news topic, which is the Triple I Initiative. This is a show that is arranged at one of, over COVID, E3 collapsed and Jeff Keighley carefully, bravely stepped into the void, but even he couldn't contain it. And a million other little game shows turned up, the Cozy Game Expo, a shitload of them. And one of them is the Triple I Initiative. I think this actually might have only started last year, but they kind of put a lot of stuff behind it. And it's kind of meant to be, it's all indie games. It's like an E3 show just for indie games. And they had a spring showcase, I guess, on the 9th of April. And I'm here to talk about it. I am not going to go through all these games for reasons I'll get to in a sec. We'll just talk about...
The 19th of April is in the
Pardon?
future. The 19th of April is in the
the
future.
9th of April, or I did say the 19th and I fucked up. It's one of those two things that happened. But the correct
Cool.
answer is that it was on the 9th of April. I'll discover when I do the edit. Yeah, so this happened. They showed games. I'm definitely not going to go through all of them. But probably the most interesting game, certainly the most exciting game for us, is Prove You're Human from Sunset Visitor, who you may remember as the developers of 2025's most ideologically correct game, 1000 Times Resist. Yes, this is a follow-up to the game that actually came out in 2024 because we're rubbish. We're rubbish. We fucked up. Again, just keep doing it. But that game was, at the very end at least, right at the end, it pipped it to becoming based as hell. And this is the next game. Apparently, it's quite early, but it looks very interesting and creative. There are elements, it looks quite surreal. There are elements of FMV in it. From what they had a little, at the end of this whole showcase, they had some extended looks at games, and one of them was this, which was extremely vague. They mainly just showed literally just footage of them making the game without even saying what any of it meant. But they did say that it's apparently about an AI that has been created in a science fiction future, and they're trying to find out if it's actually proper AGI, proper consciousness, and they're trying to stop it from becoming consciousness or something. Large part of the game are captures, the things you put on websites to prove that you are human.
Yeah, I know those. I'm so bad at them.
Well, I think we established in a previous episode that you are in fact an AI. So that's more evidence in that column.
Mm-hmm. Oh, I did the voice again. That's subjective. Do it again.
Anyway, it's got doing some weird creative stuff like that. It looks really cool, and I very much look forward to playing it. That was by far for me the most interesting game there. They finished up with Don't Starve Elsewhere, the sequel to Don't Starve, and I think it was Don't Starve Together. I know that's a very popular game. I was never really a fan, and frankly, it looks borderline identical to it.
It's really
Yeah,
hard.
that's why. I tried playing it.
The game's really difficult.
Despite
Never
the
played it.
title, I died very quickly. So,
Yeah. I starved almost immediately.
Well, just don't. I don't know what
Yeah.
to tell you guys. The instructions are
That's
very
true.
clear.
True. Maybe I didn't read the title
It's like-
closely enough.
I just feel like that game,
you
like
just
my...
read starve.
Yeah.
You
I
misunderstood.
just stopped and I was like, well, I'm doing great. My most normie friend in terms of video games, she doesn't play video games really at all. She's only ever played The Binding of Isaac and also Don't Starve. She's so good at Don't Starve, and I don't know why. I'm so bad at it. Every gamer that I've ever met is terrible at Don't
that's it.
Starve. It's so hard. It's so
I
sweaty.
love
Food, I imagine.
a relative non-gamer who's just an incredible expert at one game. I love that.
Yeah, it's just
I love
one
that.
game. Yeah, that and the
And the
Binding of
Binding of
Isaac.
Mhm.
It's just okay.
2 games there.
All right.
That looks, I mean, it's not my thing, but I know a lot of people like that. They also showed off Dead as Disco, which is a game I've seen on TikTok a lot. Apparently,
I have seen that.
well, one I see on TikTok, it's the people who've modded it to put in Harry and Kim from
Mhm.
Disco Elysium, which I do appreciate because that's how
Mm.
that's how I've curated my TikTok. Yeah, I'm more communist TikTok than either you two.
That is true.
You don't even know what my
Well, if
TikTok
you're not
looks like.
seeing Harry and Kim playing Dead is Disco,
Well, maybe I am, but I've been taking a TikTok
okay,
break.
fair enough.
so-
I can't blame you for that. But it's a game where basically you're like fighting people, mainly zombies it seems, but you're fighting people, but all the blows land in time to the music, and it looks very satisfying. As I said, there's a demo out that people have already been modding, but there's going to be early access on May the 5th. That looks pretty cool as well.
Either of you guys ever play Audio Surf?
I played it a little bit. I never really got it.
Way back
I
in the
never really got into
day.
it. I like
think
there's
so.
plenty of rhythm action games I like, and this has a good like.
I felt like Audio Surf was like the first like use your own music for a video game, and it's like kind of to the rhythm.
I am going to deeply disagree with you and say that Vibribbon
I
on the
wasn't
original
saying that
PlayStation
factually.
predates it and is better than Audio Surf, although less
Okay, it doesn't
convenient.
need to be
Less
a fight,
convenient.
Alex.
I
I was
just don't-
just, I was
I
like,
just don't-
I literally
I
said
just
the
will
phrase,
not. I just will not
feel like
stand. I
it
just
was
will
the
not.
hell
one
were
of
you
I
the
will not stand
first.
for Vibribbon erasure on this podcast. I have standards. Maybe my co-hosts don't, but whatever.
Alex,
Okay.
in that game, could you use your
In
own
Vibribbon,
music?
yes, you
How
could.
would that
Yes, you
work on a
could.
PlayStation?
The game itself was tiny. It fit in the entire memory of the PlayStation, and you could take out the disc and put
Oh,
in
so
an
Audio
audio
Surf.
CD and play it on any audio CD back in the 1990s.
That's pretty cool.
It is a
That's
very
pretty cool.
cool game.
I'll give him that.
Yeah, Dead of Disco looks pretty cool. And that's pretty much all the ones I'd be particularly interested in. To be honest, I mainly wanted to talk about this to kind of rant about it. And if I can't use my podcast that I have to inflict my opinions on an unwilling listening public, where else could I possibly do that? So basically, this is called the Triple I Initiative. It's like I stands for indie. It's like really about indie. I saw a few people like talking about it, and beforehand they were like, "Oh man, well, I'm watching the Triple I Initiative because I'm kind of tired of all these samey AAA games, man. This is where the real creativity happens, the indie space." And I was just kind of shocked at how incredibly kind of uncreative it was. How like, and I find this a lot in a lot of these showcases that have a lot of indie games in it. How blatantly so many are just chasing trends. I mean, there were so many friend slop games in this showcase. And
Mm.
I don't have a problem against any individual one of them, but that's not, friend slop is a new genre that's kind of popped up recently, and it's clearly provided an opportunity for small developers to suddenly make a lot of money. That's what's clearly happened. And so suddenly everyone's piling on, and this has happened a million times. I mean, there are even dregs of a previous gold rush in this show, because there were 3 separate horror-themed Stardew Valley ripoffs. Like 3 of them.
Yes, I've seen so many of them as
Um,
well.
And I'm just like, I feel bad criticizing, because on individual teams, these games take so long to make. You see a game like Stardew Valley when that game is new and fresh, and you're like, but it's kind of, I'd like to have a different kind of tone to it. Maybe not something that's so light and friendly, but maybe something a bit darker. And then 5 other people have that same idea, and their games will come out. But I find it depressing that the indie scene just, like, the only game I really saw that really looked really genuinely exciting and creative was the Prove You're Human from the 1000 Times Resist people. And that was the only one. Most of the other games looked fine and maybe even good. Maybe they're a really good game. But I think an issue is, and this is a game that is kind of exemplified, or an issue that's exemplified by another game on there, is a game called Shift at Midnight. Now, this is a game where, quite similar to a game Sofie will be talking about next episode, you run a shop. You run a convenience store in this case. But the twist is, a bit like those Stardew Valley games I just mentioned, it's horror themed. So, yeah. So,
Spooky.
it's got a kind of lo-fi PlayStation 1 style aesthetic. And customers come in, and some of them are actually monsters in disguise, and you have to determine which one.
Some of them won't come out.
You got to determine which one is which, and when they're a monster, you have to kill them, and then you have to mop up all the blood and stuff because it's a shop. As a game, I think it seems perfectly fine. But after the showcase, as I said, they had these longer looks at some of these games. And the first one up was Shift at Midnight. And the developer I looked at the developer, it just says Bun Muen. And I don't know if that's the name of like a company or a group or the guy, because it's made by just one guy. And he appears in this video, and it may be his name is Bun Muen. I'm not entirely sure. He puts on this video. I would recommend to anyone to check it out. If you go to the AAA initiative and like scroll through to the end of it, it's the very first of these long looks after the main showcase. He's just on camera, and he's quite charismatic. He's quite entertaining to actually watch. And he just lays out how he made this game and why he made this game. And he says at the beginning, I made like a 2D roguelike for mobile games, for mobile platforms, and no one played it. So now I'm making a game, and I'm going to make sure it's successful. So I looked at all the trends, and I discovered that horror games are really, really popular. Everyone said I should make a horror game. But the problem is, I get scared really easily. I don't like horror games, but I'm making it anyway because that's what's popular. And he meant that like sincerely, to be clear. That wasn't like a jokey bit. He genuinely was like, I have a problem doing that, but I'm going to keep ahead anyway because I need to make $1 million. And then he went on to the next bit, which is like his whole plan is to get what he calls the big three of streamers to cover his game. I don't know. I'd only heard of one of them, Markiplier. I've heard of that guy. Sofie, unfortunately, again, not one of them. You got to buck up. Got to, get on your game. You're letting us down.
I'm sorry, I'm only streaming once a week at the moment.
The other one was called Queso. I've never heard of that guy. And another guy.
Oh,
I'm sure you've heard of him.
Yeah.
And then there was...
He's one of the big three of gamers on Twitch, I'd say.
And then there's another one whose name was longer, and I can't remember.
What the hell?
Sorry.
These are my colleagues, Alex.
He apparently... But my point is that he just made this game specifically for these streamers to play it. And he literally says that, and he talks about and he talks about his travails making the game, and he's got Markiplier and Queso to play the game on stream, and then this other guy didn't do it.
That feels shady. There's something shady about that.
Well, I mean, this has all happened in the past, to be fair. As far as I can tell, he's done it naturally. I don't know. But, I almost no part in his description of making this game is the idea that what he's making is art, and that it's
something
a
he likes to
creative thing.
do.
Yeah. At the very end, he does say, because the game has already, a demo came out and it's been very successful apparently. So he did say he feels really good that a lot of people played his game and apparently enjoyed it. So I guess that's something. But, coming into this thing purely like I want to make money, which is pretty much what he seemed like he wanted to do. On one level, I guess it's refreshing that he's not lying about it and he's being honest about his intentions. But I just found it quite depressing that, especially, and this is in the indie showcase, right? Fucking AAA developers do not come out there and go, well, we checked the trends, and it turns out that a third-person shooter with military theming and a hint of supernatural elements is actually what sells really well right now. So we made that game. They would never say that. And maybe it's because they're lying, but I don't know. I found it quite depressing. And again, I don't want to be too bad on this guy, because I think he reflects a general trend that a lot of people, especially for indie games, are just looking, they're following trends. They're like, okay, friend swap games, they sell really well. We should make a friend swap game. And it's understandable. I can't blame it, but I find it quite bleak that what is supposed to be the avant-garde of video games in the indie space feels so totally colonized by commercialization. Even like Dead as Disco, a game I thought looked pretty good. They specifically said, oh yeah, we wanted it to feel like a video game version of like a TikTok dance video. And this is very, very clearly meant to go viral on TikTok, this entire game. And to a certain degree, it has. They've succeeded in that. Yeah, I don't know. It's one thing to have this be in the AAA space. Those games are huge, but you expect they've got to sell a huge amount. They've got to appeal to the lowest common denominator to a degree. So you expect a certain amount of commercial compromise in it. But then for an entire indie showcase to so heavily be commercialized, I found that quite bleak. And in general, I do feel there is an overall air in the kind of the discourse of games that is, there's something about it, by the way people talk about it, that is inherently commercial. There's a little thing that gets my bugbear is that when people refer to quote unquote the industry, now we do that a bunch on here, but that's when we're talking about like industrial issues, like, working conditions and whether games are selling well or badly and things like that. These are issues of industry. But I've heard people say things like, I don't know, Zelda Ocarina of the Time on the N64 was a really important game that had lots of innovations. It really pushed the industry forward. That's like something that you might see.
Mm.
And like, I don't think that game did particularly push the industry forward. Maybe you could find some industrial elements it did, but it pushed the art form forward. And I feel like increasingly people don't talk about games as if they're an art. I think there's a general agreement that they are, but they don't talk about them in that way. They don't talk about how the game makes you feel, what it says about the world, or things like that. And so many games that come out, even like friend slot games, which I think are good in their way, they are very much made purely kind of to facilitate an interaction. And that's fine in itself, but there's not many friend swap games really are saying anything about the world or trying to evoke a true emotion from you in any way. And it's fine, they have their place and that's great. But I feel that so many games are just kind of chasing this goal of, I don't know, I can't even really put my finger on it, but just like a certain type of gameplay, and like everything's about like tuning the gameplay to be as like satisfying in a very kind of narrow way as possible. I don't know. I just have this kind of, this is my kind of rant. Like something that I've seen a lot of is just like gambling mechanics in games. Like so many roguelikes and things like Vampire Survivors. And I do feel like that comes from the world of gambling, the popularity of that, even if those are being implemented in these games in perfectly ethical and reasonable ways. And I just feel like it feels like as I think the economic situation gets worse for most people, that like everything's got to be compressed into making more money in this way. In the same way that AAA games are full of microtransactions, even in the indie space, they've got, even if they're not going to fill them out microtransactions or more predatory things, they've got to be like, they've got to go viral. They've got to go viral. So they've got to be carefully engineered to go viral. I don't know. Anyway, that's my rant.
Yeah, I mean, but you've hit on the fundamental point, right? Which is that to the extent that these games are being produced at least partially so that they can support the people that made them financially, they will be subject to the exact same pressures, regardless of whether it's a AAA game or whether it's an indie game. Like there will be some differences. The AAA game needs to make way more money, so maybe you're saying maybe that means it's got to do even more exploitative stuff. But like, the guy making that indie game, like his entire career might rely on that in a way that it doesn't for the average person making a AAA game. Like from a certain point of view, to quote Obi-Wan Kenobi, he'll be even more Sofie. He'll be even more incentivized to make as much money from this one product as anyone else. And you see this outside of gaming as well, don't you? Like there's this sort of, sometimes there can be a fetishization of the small business as opposed to the large business, as though they're not subject to the same like pressures that any bit of capital is subject to. Like the indie game developers are essentially small businesses, and it will depend on the specific one to what extent it's like the art versus the money that's leading the charge. But they're both there's going to be intention, and there's going to be a bit of both in all of them. And I don't know, I guess I don't necessarily see, or maybe we therefore shouldn't necessarily see indie games as being the avant-garde of gaming, like inherently just because they're indie games. But we do use the term indie games as though that's what we expect from them. But I think what you're saying and what this reveals is that that's a misplaced expectation, and we might need to look for something more specific to find the avant-garde. Sofie?
Yeah, I guess I was also just going to say, I think there's definitely an argument to be made in terms of like, we're still making it, we might still be making an artistic project, but we're having to use cynical methods to get it seen, kind of in the attention economy argument of like, we're having to edit things in a particular way, we're having to upload our long form content as short form content just in order to get it in front of eyes. I think there's definitely an argument to be made there. Something I was thinking about with friend slop as well, I think something we could see is that as I feel like we have these genres that come about that are entirely designed to attract audiences and sort of become viral and get interaction, like friend slop, which I think very much has come about in the way that it has, sort of entirely freshly because it's capitalizing on this attention economy vibe. I think we are also going to see creative and artistic innovations within those genres as those genres develop and age. An example, which is like, I don't know, this game isn't out yet, but there's this friend slop game that I've really been looking forward to called Flock Around, which comes out later this month on the 24th, not sponsored or anything, but it's basically like a friend
So,
slop
hey,
game.
if those guys want to give us money, we're not going to turn it down. We're not going to turn it down.
Please give me a copy. Basically, the goal of the game is like you're just a group of 4 friends, but you go and try and capture pictures of birds, and it seems to have like cute little birds and like real birds that exist, and you have to sort of like learn things about birds. And I feel like that's just a nice example of like, oh, clearly someone is just really interested in birds and was also like, maybe I can turn my bird fascination into a friend slop game and make a bunch of money. But here I feel like, maybe we're achieving both of the two. Maybe it's not quite art yet, but at least it's someone's sort of like interest turned into potentially a profitable venture. So I feel like, we may also see these genres, these things develop with time. But I mean, this is also just happening to every art medium, right? This is happening to film as well. I've complained about film for many, many years that like, I fucking hate it when people are like, I spent money to go see this, not like the latest Marvel movie. That makes me so mad because I'm just like, they don't need your cash. Like if you're going to sail the seas for any of these films, like maybe do it for the big budget, like multi-universe projects that don't need your money, and having to use like weird marketing techniques for films to get them in front of eyes, because also nobody wants to invest in them, right? And we are absolutely going to have a problem, if we don't already, it's going to be an increasing problem of studios not wanting to foot the bill for risky ideas, risky creative ideas, because they can't guarantee a profit, unlike a shooter with boxes, unlike a Marvel film or a Super Mario property.
Let's not leave the obvious unsaid as well, in that how this process works across industries is those that focus most on making money on average over the whole picture will be the firms that end up making the most money on average.
Yes.
There will be exceptions where exceptionally artistic or interesting or just lucky people and firms manage to make something great that really takes off and they make a lot of money from it. But the tendency will be towards those that focus on making money will make the most money, and therefore they'll eat up more and more of the market share, and the cycle repeats and they'll be in a better position to make more money next time. That's the process that we're looking at, and we're just seeing a certain part of it that we're looking at here. So just wanted to make that very explicit for us
That's
all.
very true, yeah. I don't want to be too hard on friend slop. I enjoyed Peak, and actually Peak is an interesting, I think, as the developers who made that recently came out and said, they actually said it in like quite...
that they don't owe people updates. That was an interesting conversation as well. Yeah, if everyone expects a live experience.
They said we're not a live service. It's not a live service game. We'll make a certain amount of updates and then it's done, and then we'll move on to the next thing.
Which, like AgriCrab, also have made a bunch of good games as well. They've just like made some really good games in the past. So like that's a reliable sort of indie studio. But
I mean,
I think you're right. I think they kind of lucked out as well. It's like obviously, I'm sure when they were making it, they were like, we're gonna make this friend swap game. Great premise. Hopefully, it also goes viral and makes us a bunch of money. And I definitely think that's probably like a healthy combination of the two.
I mean, if you're making, I don't think there's anything inherently wrong with making a friend swap game for the sake of making a friend swap game. But if you're making a friend swap game specifically, you're chasing a trend of any type, specifically to...
Yeah, perhaps you should say any game rather than just a friend swap game.
Any kind of trend chasing thing, and you're doing it to like fund your true passion project, or even like you're going to do that, like maybe like this birds one you were talking about. You're like hiding your real passion and love in this, more commercial package. That'd be cool. But I'd say just when I watched the show, it just seemed like it was all people who just want to make friend swap games or just want to make these games. I don't know. It was just a bit different. But yeah.
No, I understand the cynicism, I think. And I'm not saying you're being cynical. I'm saying the outlook is quite pessimistic.
You can,
it's not looking
you
good.
can say I'm being cynical.
You know?
You can say I'm being.
I don't think you're being cynical. I think I was, while I was listening to your point, it's like, yeah, I think we're just seeing what happened to the film industry, right? Like, again.
I don't think Alex is being cynical because I think the person that Alex is talking about was being cynical about the thing that they were making.
They were being cynical, exactly.
Treating it as a product.
Like,
and
I can't
really
really
reporting
blame you for trying to make money from your job. I can't really blame you for doing that. But I can absolutely blame the industry, for lack of a better word. I can absolutely blame the, capitalism for making this art form, what is an art form, into an industry instead of an art form. And it just sucks.
I mean, ultimately, it's an artifact of late capitalism, neoliberal order collapsing, basically.
Etc. Etc.
Yeah. And again, this is the most important aspect of that event happening, as we said before.
No doubt. Clearly.
But on that pronouncement, I think we're going to be done with the episode. I think that's it.
That's it.
We're
Go
all
away.
done.
That's it.
We finished. Yeah. Let's
get out.
Yeah. Look, I'm not going to say we're sick of you because we love you, but maybe we can.
Well,
I think we can maybe use about a week apart, and then maybe in a week's time.
I think we just need some space.
A week's time,
I think we just need some space.
come running back to us because you can't live without us. We know it. As always, we would desperately hope and wish and beg that you share this podcast around. Review us on iTunes and Spotify. Give us as many stars as you think is appropriate. I would say maybe 400 million stars. I think maybe you should rank us about there. And if they don't allow you to go that high, just round up to that. Just round up to that, or round down, whatever. Just get as close as you can to 400 million. That's what I'd recommend. But you can make your own choices. Make your own choices in life as well as podcasts. And when you tell people about us, you can tell them how to find us. You can find us on Twitter at Red Barrels Pod and on Blue Sky at Red Barrels Podcast.bsky.social. Me personally, you can find me on Twitter at AlexDean, ALEXDUIN, on Blue Sky at AlexDean.bsky.social. Sophie, how can people find you?
They can find me on Twitch. I stream twitch.tv/freely. What about you, Ed?
Oh, you can find me on Blue Sky at Dr. Lemon and on X at still.
I think Ed was thrown by just how quickly Sophie just read that URL off. It was genuinely something to behold.
Really? I feel like I usually read it that quickly. Twitch.tv/freely.
It was slightly slower than that. But now that what you just did was ridiculous. And I think you insulted our entire listenership. But as always, we would say thank you for the music.
Shall I go with that take?
Done.
Or because if we go with that take, you need to include all the spitting discourse.
We'll see. I make the choices. I make the choices in the edit bay.
Well, the joke doesn't make any sense if without the
I
spit
might just cut both jokes. I can do whatever I like it. You can't stop me. You can't stop me. The music.
So you'll cut my bit directly after the spit.
We'll see. We'll see what magic I can pull.
Good luck, Ryan.
The music is from Brilliant Drink, and we love it as always. But that really is going to be it, because we're going to say goodbye.
Bye.
On Twitter at Red Barrels Pod and on Blue Sky at Red Barrels Podcast.bsky.social. Me personally, you can find me. Sorry, I had a mouthful of spit and it just got out of control.
Gross.
I know.
Spitty mouth again, Alex. We've been through this.
Me personally, you can find me.
Oh, you're redoing the take. You're not just going with the previous one.
Yes, I'm redoing it. I don't want to talk about spit on the podcast. You just said it was icky.
Well,
to us about it?
Yeah, because you
variety
two,
is the spice of life, isn't it?
You two are hardened. You can handle it now.
We take our phlegm umbrellas everywhere.
Exactly. You can find me on Twitter at AlexDean, ALEXDUIN, on Blue Sky at AlexDean.bsky.social.